Hello YouTubers, this is Johnny again from 573 Outdoors. If you saw my part 1 of this build series that I got going on here, I talked to you briefly about the Bergara B14 HMR and 6.5 Creedmoor that's sitting here in front of you. To run back through it real quick if you hadn't seen it, stock rifle other than having a bedded action with epoxy and a Anarchy Outdoors TPI titanium muzzle brake and a Night Force 20 MOA scope rail that's sitting up on top. Pretty much everything else is stock, and then you got the Caldwell bipod up front. Not expensive, but it gets the job done. Excuse me. So the purpose of this video today is to do a unboxing, like everybody else has done, about a PST Viper or Viper PST Gen2 and the PMR 30mm rings from Vortex. Guess we'll just get right after it. Pretty much standard, nothing different that I have that no one else does. Just got this in from A&A Optics in Indiana. They're super when it comes to veterans and such. They honor the Vortex 40% military discount straight from them. No questions asked other than clearly some proof that you did serve or are serving. So get into it. Standard Vortex scope caps. I'm not going to open those up because I won't even use them. The inspection chart from Vortex. The torque specs for the scope says you should never exceed 18 inch-pounds, which to my knowledge, after using the scope ring torque wrench for the first time on a rifle that I built last week, 18 inch-pounds is not very much at all. So I've definitely been over tightening scopes for years. Next, little Vortex swag sticker to put on your car. All right, to the meat and potatoes. Still fresh in the plastic. Got a nice little rubber band that keeps it locked in there nice and tight. As it says on the box, this is the 5 to 25 by 50. MRAD EBR2 Charlie reticle. The scope is rather long for its magnification range, in my opinion. I feel like there's several other scopes that fit a little more compact, but from my knowledge and research, this extended tube on the PST Gen2 allows for a smoother transition of light into the main tube and then into the ocular lens and clearly into your eye. So as opposed to those scopes like the Bushnell DMR with their very short high angle tube, apparently or allegedly this transmits lights more smoothly than that one does. Now, to each their own. A lot of it's based on looks and performance. As long as it performs, it performs. Okay, so this does have the RZR zero stop, as everyone knows. It just locks in tight once you spin it back. Boom, there it was. Okay, so they had it dialed up a little bit to give me some adjustment when it comes to zero time. If no one's ever used a PST Gen2 with the Razor zero stop or Gen 1 Razor with the Razor zero stop, the easiest way to zero this scope is to take off the top cap, loosen up the zero stop set screws to disengage the zero stop, adjust it to your bore sight, and just leave them open until you're at the range and ready to zero the rifle. What's going to be odd is when you have the outer cap off and the zero stop disengaged, you can turn the turret, it will move the reticle, but there will be no clicks. It's double-sided. One, it doesn't feel right. You always think that you should feel a click when you turn it, but you're not going to, but you can clearly see it move. Number two is where it will come into play with a MRAD scope is an MRAD is 3/8 of an inch at 100 yards. One MRAD is. So 0.1 mil is 3/8 of an inch at 100 yards. Whereas with an MOA scope, it's a quarter. Each click is a 1/4 inch at 100 yards. So you can be a little more fine with an MOA when it comes to the 100-yard zero. That's why Vortex went to this disengage zero stop with no clicks. You technically can adjust inside clicks. So as you turn the turret with the zero stop disengaged, you are moving it at very minute and finite distances every time. So whenever you find your exact zero, you will tighten up the zero stop set screws to engage it, return your cap on top of your outer cap on top of it, tighten your 3 set screws here, placing your turret on 0, and your zero stop is set. There's no need to mess with it. Clearly on the elevations or the windage side, there's no need for a zero stop because that would pretty much disregard any use of that turret because you wouldn't be able to go one direction. You could only go the other. Now the turret on the windage does have R1, R2 all the way out to 5, and then L1, L2 all the way out to 5 as well. The clicks are very tactile, and you know they're going to happen, and you do not overturn. We do have a parallax adjustment here. The parallax is very smooth, but you know it's turning, and it's not going to over travel on you. It does go all the way from 25 to infinity. Last hash mark before infinity is 500 yards. Yes, we all know that sometimes the hash marks do not line up or match up with the distance that you're shooting at, but it always helps to have some type of reference on there. Innovative illuminated reticle design here. Most scope manufacturers have went to it now. You have a stop or an off switch in between each setting. Very stout turn that I just noticed when I was turning the illumination adjustment. I do not have the battery in it. It's still in the box because I literally cut the tape with you guys. But there is a off switch in between every number, so you can keep it on or near your favorite and adjust it as need be. As I said, this is the 5 to 25. This is my first turns of it. Noticing that it is stiff, but it's not abnormal for them to be stiff on the Vortex. It does go, does stop promptly. There's no over travel past the numbers, but there's not the same hard stop as what was like on the Razor Gen 2 that I had last week. Okay, moving forward into the PMRs. For this build, since I did mention in my last video that I'm moving to a full-length MDT ESS chassis that's going to have the encompassed handguard, I do have to be cognizant of the height of the scope above the barrel. Since that handguard will come up and kind of crown around the barrel for about 10 inches of the stock, I do need to make sure that I don't mount the scope exactly as low as what I typically want to. I usually like to get as close to the bore of the rifle as possible to maximize the amount of elevation that I can adjust into my scope. Because the closer you get to your bore, the lower in the reticle that you're going to be, or the higher in the reticle that you're going to be, that would mean that you can go, you'll have more up adjustment, which is always a preference when it comes to long range shooting. So I went with the 30 millimeter medium height, 0.97 inch to be exact. I had the 0.87s on this rifle when I originally had this, the MOV version of this scope, and I had about a 1/4 inch of space in between the objective bell and the barrel, which was good, but that would interfere with my stock, I do believe. The PMRs are in here just like all the other PMRs they are. They shrink wrap them in nice and tight. These rings are stout. They are heavy. They are rigid. They're everything that they're meant to be. They're meant to hold your scope exactly where you put it and for it never to move. I do notice that when these PMRs are mounted down to the rail and then you set your scope in it, it is not normal what you're used to with your standard scope rings. You can literally set the scope in these rings, and you usually could turn the scope inside the rings. With these PMRs, they're to such tight tolerances that they literally hold the scope in there, and you can't hardly turn it without kind of moving it up out of the ring itself. It almost, on my Ruger American that I had, because it was so light, I used PMR rings on it the first time, and when I went to pull the scope up out of it, it literally lifted the rifle up off the table. That's how tightly they hold. It does come with a little card that says do not exceed 45 to 50 inch-pounds on the base screws, and no more than 18 inch-pounds on the scope, which that coincides with what the box inside the card inside the scope box is. I'm gonna go ahead and replace this stuff back in the box because I got that pretty much memorized, 45 to 50 and 18 inch-pounds. That's no issue. I'm gonna set that off to the side. I'm gonna go ahead and place these back in here. Oh, a couple other things. Clearly, reticle, instruction manual, battery, and an Allen key for the rings inside here, and then a lens cloth, and of course it comes with the standard 3 inch sunshade for the PST Gen2. I almost said 4 inch because that's what comes with the Viper HS series. Okay. As you can see, the rifle is clear. And yeah, I'll drop the magazine just for the purposes of the video. Okay, I'm gonna lock the bolt down. I'm gonna secure my Torx wrench, or my torque wrench with my Torx keys. And these PMR rings come with T25 hardware, which is exceptional when it comes to mounting hardware because that's oversized. They usually come with T20s or some other variant of a standard size. I'm gonna go ahead and use their tool to let the screws out just a little bit so I can get them attached. I'm not gonna do a whole lot of setup on where these rings will go because I know exactly where my rings need to be because like I said, this is not my first go around on this rifle. Okay, I'm just gonna mount that loosely there while I get this one set up. Okay, so I got those set in there. Now I'm gonna loosely tighten. I know that's an oxymoron, but I'm just gonna tighten it to the point where it touches, nothing more for now. Okay, so there's a little bit of play. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Same for this one. This is where it touches. Okay, there's a little play there. Now, purposes of this, you always want to have your rings as forward possible against technically the back of that rung on that Picatinny rail, so that as the rifle recoils, there's no slop in it and you don't have any movement. So if you have them back here, you just bump them up that way. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of touch them down. Okay, same here. Go ahead and touch them down with a little bit of hand tightening torque. I'm gonna get my Weaver torque wrench, run it up to 50 inch-pounds. Okay, there's right at 50 inch-pounds. Secure my T25 Torx key. Ooh, wrong one. There she is. Okay. Now I'm just going to work each one of them on this base. Well, there's one. One more time. Okay, I've already set that one forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got it. This should be there. And we'll hit them one more time, all of them. Okay, so now to take off the top caps. Now I do like on these PMR rings, since they are precision matched, I know that means that each ring is milled from one piece of aircraft grade aluminum, blase blase. But in my mind, I also keep the scope ring tops integral to which base they were with, because I believe that just if they were set that way from the factory, then they're set that way for me. Flying screw, set that down there. Oop, I need all these down. Okay, so there's the rear one. Got my scope. I'll make sure my tube is nice and clean. I'm gonna run my finger through here, make sure there's no dirt or grime. Just sitting there. Now, for this. Okay, so see how I set that in there? Now watch this. See how tight once you set it, picks up the rifle. That is a secure fit. That also aids in when you got everything torqued down to spec, you know that it's in there where it needs to be. Now, also, as I've said in the past, I've had this scope before. I know exactly where the scope needs to be. And that literally a thumb's width in between the rear ring and the lead part of the objective is right for me. So what I'm going to go ahead and step to now is my level. I know a lot of people, they got their plumb bobs and they got all that such. I'm not that fortunate to have all that jazz, or the little bitty levels you set on the top of the base, all that stuff. What I have is a simple carpenter's small level. It's worked for me forever, so that's what I use. And let's face it, a bubble level is only going to get you within about a half a degree anyhow. Okay, so right now I got the mounting surfaces level, checked all three of them. Appears to be, I'm going to give it a little bit more on this side. Okay, so that's level. One thing that I do not trust is on top of the PST Gen2, clearly see this little fiber optic marker up here. That's for you in the rear when you're behind the gun, and behind the scope you can see that you are on your zero or when you're looking down to it. What I don't like about it is it does give a false square top to the top of the scope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my Allen key for the turrets. I'm going to remove the top cap of that turret to get the flattest surface that I possibly can. They should not be on there very tight. Don't want to bring them out too awful far to lose them, because it would take about 3 days. Vortex would get them new ones to you, but it'd have you out of the fight for a little while. If you're an impatient individual like myself, it's no good. Okay, so I pulled that cap. Got the top that's a little bit of grease on it. So again, here is that RZR zero stop. These are those 3 set screws that I was speaking of that you can take off or disengage to adjust your zero. Be cognizant of, there is a very small O-ring here that keeps out dirt and debris and moisture from the main housing of the scope. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mount the scope in there. The rifle is level to begin with, so we'll go ahead and level. See, I got to disengage it a little bit in order to level it. And once I get it there, there it is. Oop, a little bit, a little bit. Okay, got that level. Go ahead and place the rings where they were, front and rear. I'll go ahead and grab my wrench. I'm just going to get these started. I have not adjusted the torque specs on my wrench yet, so I will not be even applying any bit of pressure because I still have it set at 50. So this is just a preliminary. So there's those. And you always want to go in a crisscross fashion whenever tightening or starting to set the screw depth on these. And also, as everyone knows, you want to make sure that you have even pressure on both sides, so make sure that your gaps are very similar, if not as exact as you can possibly get them. There's no need to measure them or use some type of shim system, but it's best to get them as close as you can. Okay. Boom. Okay, got them there. So now, oh, there's one more here I forgot. Okay. Got that on my gaps. Tolerances look rather close. Okay, so now just adjust this down. Now, technically, mine goes down to 20, so I just go about a quarter turn below. Actually, no, it goes down to 15. My bad. My eyes are losing me right now. So my increments go from 15 to 20 and then to 25. So I'm going to go square in the middle of 15 and 20. Call that about good right there. And then again, in a crisscross pattern, 18 inch-pounds will come very, very quickly. Like that right there. Okay, same for the front. Just touch it, touch it, touch it. There it is. Go back through. I'm just going to recheck the rear. And voila, got a mounted scope that's trued and level. Now, to mount my scope cap back until it's time for me to zero my scope. Scope ring. Okay, not to be just super precise, it's just for, that's part of my OCD that gets into me wanting to line up perfectly, but for now, there's nothing really that means it other than aesthetics. Okay, and just, you want to tighten, finger tight with the short portion of the Allen key on these rings because you do not want to over tighten or strip those out. There's plenty of clearance here between the action and the scope. Pretty much done for this portion of the series. Of course, like, follow, share, subscribe if you're interested in seeing the rest of this build. The next part, which my stock should come in tomorrow, I'll be uploading another video. Definitely should stay tuned. It's going to change the look of this rifle completely. So hey, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, place them in the comment section below. Get out and shoot.